Hi, everybody. Welcome. We've got a really great class to help energize your body, support you from the inside out, so you can head into philosophy and meditation illuminated in body, mind, and spirit. And so now, for real, we'll turn to the left and allow the knees to come just a little bit wider than the hips. And if this is not comfortable for the quadriceps or for the heels, feel free to grab a block and place it underneath the sits bones so that you have a little extra support. Can you and then once you've found your comfortable seated position, blankets work too, or I guess you could sit in the chair as long as it's there, right? Once you've found your sustainable seat, start to relax and just feel the weight on the legs and the pelvis resting on the heels, the shins compressing towards the mat. And allow your body to land in the present moment. Allow your mind to land in the present moment. And we'll just start with some really gentle movements. So you can slowly start to circle to the right. And as you circle the body, notice how this shifts the weight in the legs. And if it's too much on the legs, you can always put the hands in front of you, almost like a tabletop, and that will just take any of the pressure out of the knees. So that's a great option. And then start to circle the other direction and move twice as slow, especially if you're new to my classes. And moving slower, notice how that helps you feel a little bit more. Almost as if you had a firecracker on New Year's Eve and you were tracing a shape in the air, and you could feel or you could see where you began and where you ended almost at the same time. Right? Your body is the firecracker, just tracing shapes through space. And the next time you circle forward, let's all place our hands down if they're not already, and just paw them forward, letting the hips lift. Let the knees turn forward so the calves are parallel. If you've got a block there, you can move it out of the way. And just lower one forearm at a time, and then lift back up onto your paws. And do this a few times at your own pace, and notice the sensation in your shoulders and how it changes when you're on your forearms. And just start to notice the breath flow. It's not necessarily connected to your movement, but just try to be aware of it, flowing in and out of the nose as smoothly as possible. The next time you come back up, reverse direction. So the other forearm will come down first. And then see if you can move a little more smoothly. Almost like the arms are just melting and then reforming. Nice. The next time you come back up, start to press into the hands, shifting the hips towards the heels. And if it's comfortable, slide the hands forward and melt the forehead any amount towards the earth. It's okay if it doesn't touch. Press the shins down into the mat and notice how that unweights the pelvis. Let the pelvis start to float. Keep pushing down into the shins to send the hips forward until the shoulders stack over the wrists. And just pause there for a moment and paw out the hands. Bring a little extra weight to the pinky side of the hand. Let the knuckles on the index and middle fingers lift up so your hands are really soft. And then push back, hips to heels, and we'll sync this to our breath. So the next time you push down into the shins, or I should say the next time you inhale, push down into the shins, let that float you forward and up to table, or maybe a little longer than a table. And then as exhale, push back. And let your breath generate the movement. So it might not sync up with me, and it means you get to tune in and be your unique, special self. The next time you float forward, we'll add on with the arms. So lift the right hand, same movement, push the hips back to the heels, but bring the back of the right hand to the mat and let it drag alongside of you. And on your next inhale, as the hips float forward and up, draw a big circle or a small circle, depending on what your shoulder wants. And then just do this a couple of times. And the hips don't actually have to go all the way to the heels. You might have a smaller movement now that you've only got one arm to support you. Just be open to that. Take one more circle and then we'll switch sides. Nice, you guys are all moving so fluidly. Great job, Dave. Flip the left palm now and send the hips back. Draw your big circle with the arm and be open to this arm moving a little differently. The next time the hand comes forward, walk the knees under towards one another. Send the hips back to the heels, but this time sit back on the heels. Push down into the shins and slowly rise up to kneeling. Then imagine you've got really short legs. Go for a little walk in place and let your knees start to find their way underneath your hips. If you've got sensitive knees, feel free to place a blanket underneath them for a little extra support. Bring the hands to the front of the hip creases, and we're actually going to try to keep this area flat. So you might be used to arching the back here, and we're actually going to stay totally neutral and just bend the knees a little bit. You might not move very far, but you know you're doing it right if you feel it in your quadriceps. So that's the front of the thigh. If you'd like to sync this up with the breath, the exhale can float you back, and the inhale can float you forward. And as you pulse here, notice your ability to just gently hug inner thighs together, so gentle, maybe just like 5% of what's possible. For those of you that have studied the deep front line, you might be able to feel how that hugging associates into the pelvic floor and all the way up the spine, even to the tongue. We'll be using that pathway in a couple of movements today. You might be able to lengthen a little bit more when you have that, just that gentle hug. And then come to neutral, release the arms, and try to relax as much as possible and just observe your next couple of breaths. Okay, the big chair moment. So it's so exciting. I love this movement. I hope you guys do too. Release the hands down, and first we'll crawl away from our chair. So bring your left knee forward and let your right hand glide forward. And then the right knee will follow, and it's always opposite hand to knee. I find it easiest if the knee leads the movement. It is okay to leave your mat, and if you don't have space, just crawl forward and back. You get extra points because crawling backward is harder for your brain, or at least for mine. And do this one more time. And then we'll crawl all the way back until our hips actually touch the edge of the chair. And the chair is going to give us a little bit of feedback here. If your wrists are getting sensitive, you can make fists and push down into the fist just to neutralize your wrists for a moment. And start to cat and cow and notice the feedback on the pelvis, so you can feel that little bit of tipping of the sits bones rocking forward and then rocking back. And we're using this because we're going to find a neutral pelvis in a moment, and we want to build that sensitivity. What does it feel like as the sits bones drop? And then lift. Let the movement get smaller and smaller until you find a neutral spine. And so it might feel like the sits bones can press directly back into your chair. And now we're going to challenge this a little bit. You might want to bring your hands back to the mat if you're in fists. Start to curl the right knee into the chest without losing the contact you have with the chair. So it might not go very far, but hopefully you can feel the core strength required to maintain your neutral pelvis. Lower that knee down and just kind of march in place, switching from leg to leg. And you might not curl in as much as you're used to, but you hopefully feel some extra muscles, or at least extra awareness, working to stabilize your pelvis. The next time the right knee comes forward, we'll challenge it even more. Try to open the right leg off to the side. The foot might need to jump around the chair a little bit without the pelvis tipping forward or back. And then bring that leg in. And then do the same thing on the other side. So the leg curls forward and then it opens off to the side just a little bit. And it's okay if the pelvis moves. We're just trying to notice a little bit more. Sometimes we have no idea what our hips are even doing in these movements. And then crawl forward just an inch so you've got more room for your leg to move. Now the right knee will curl in and open off to the side. Hopefully it has enough space around your chair. And bring your awareness to your pelvis. Try to keep it level, just like you did before, as you lift the knee behind you. And it might have to tip forward a little bit because the height of your chair, and that's fine. And just do that a couple of times. It's okay if the pelvis moves a little bit, but notice how much stability you can create by trying to keep the pelvis neutral as the leg moves. The next time the right knee is lifted, set it on your chair. Walk back any amount that allows you to push down into the chair a little bit with your knee. And so push down into the chair and notice how that can allow the left knee to get a little bit lighter. Relax the right foot, circle it a couple times, and then set the left knee down. Push down into the left hand. Let the toes point behind you and just slowly open any amount. And we're going to pulse between those two shapes. And so you'll lower down, push down into the right knee. The left knee gets lighter. Maybe it lifts a little, but it doesn't have to. As you do that, try to find the neutral pelvis and that flatness in the front of the hip crease. And then set everything down and let the body expand. We'll do one more. And then before you open off to the side, actually lower the left forearm, place the left hand on top of the right, and then start to lift the right hand out of the way. Pivot onto the inner thigh and turn to face me for a modified side plank. The bottom leg will shift underneath the top leg, and it can be down for a little extra support. Or if it feels good, you can actually squeeze the chair with both legs. Make sure you can breathe here, and if you want to pulse, you can exhale to lift the leg. And just take a couple of pulses, or if it feels good, you can hold. And as you gently squeeze the inner thighs together, lengthen through the spine, press the tongue into the roof of the mouth. Nice idea, Amber. You can lift the top hand. Raise your hand if you love this pose. You're like, oh, I'm putting my hand down. Slowly release the bottom leg, release the top arm, and take your time shifting back to where you came from. Slide the leg off of the chair and just crawl forward. You can crawl off the mat, or you can crawl forward and back on the mat, and just process what you just did. And then pause in the middle of the mat so you've got a little bit of room between you and your chair. Open the right leg off to the side and just melt the hips back towards the heel. Take a couple of pulses here. Feel free to lower to the forearms. Use fists, whatever allows the hands to feel supported. And then using the same muscles that supported you on the chair, I'm going to turn just so you can see me do this. Gently hug inner thighs together and let that action help you reverse melt up to kneeling. And just pause there for a moment. And then the action continues as you lift the hands and feel the whole body. Oh, this hopefully you're like, yes, I'm upright. Hooray. Take a breath here. Notice any sense of expansion. You can soften the elbows if it allows you to open the heart a little bit. And then lower the right hand to the leg, and slowly start to side bend without losing that sensation of in and up. Though each breath might soften it, there's no tension here. And then push down into the right foot, slowly rise up, arms to T, and then melt the arms down. I'll just turn back to meet you guys where you're at and bring the right knee in and slowly, let's paw the hands forward, tuck the toes, lift the knees and press back to downward facing dog. Just sway the hips from side to side, letting the legs extend for a moment. We'll do the second side, but I want your legs to extend. Start to paw the hands in towards the feet, coming in to a forward fold. Let the head melt. And then heavy sits bones towards the heels. Drop the weight into the heels and slowly roll up one vertebra at a time. You can place the hands on the thighs if that prevents strain in the low back and the neck. You want to feel really light here. Take your time. Nice job moving slowly. Pause for a moment at the top, and I know we only did one leg, so just scan the right side of the body and notice the impact of that sequence on the right hip, maybe the support around the spine on the right side, and then we'll balance it out on the other side. So sweep the arms forward. Hey, as long as the chair's here, sweep the arms forward. Start to send the hips back towards the chair. And then imagine I'm going to take the chair away. And you bring the littlest amount of weight into the chair, but you don't release your effort completely. And then push into the legs to come back up. Try that a couple of times. Keep the weight in the heels so there's no pressure in the front of the knees. And you'll get to actually sit in the chair in a moment. The next time you bend the knees, move just as consciously. Don't release the weight completely, and then just try slowly releasing the weight so you have this like conscious moment where you sit, you don't ever fall. And then let the arms swing down. Swing the arms back up. This time we'll melt forward, paw the hands forward, slowly lowering the knees so we can do our sequence on the second side. So crawl backwards until your hips are just about an inch in front of the chair and the legs are slightly underneath. Curl the left knee into the chest. Let it open off to the side and try to keep the hips neutral as the leg opens from the body and then lifts behind you, kind of like a scorpion tail. And then the knee or the front of the thigh comes to the chair. You might need to move forward or back a little bit. You guys look great. Take a moment to neutralize your pelvis. So it should actually feel like a tiny crunch almost, so there's not really an arch in the low back. And then push down into the chair thigh and allow that hip to strengthen. Maybe the bottom leg hovers, but it doesn't have to. You can get a lot of strength keeping the leg down. And then you'll actually be rotating away from me. So shift the weight into the right hand. Let the left foot swivel to face the screen. Lift the left hand to turn away. Push the inner thigh down so you're still getting strength, but now from a different angle. And then we'll repeat. So the top hand drops, the top leg swivels, push down with the thigh, just activating, almost trying to create more space in the hip socket. You don't have to push very hard. And then you can rotate open and find that sense of expansion. Do one more on your own. And see if you can notice how the pushing down into the chair isn't just about the hip, but actually translates all the way up the core, all the way to the tongue, pressing into the roof of the mouth. The next time you're facing downward, lower the right forearm down. Place the right hand on the left hand so it points away from me. Pivot the inner thigh and slowly lift the top hand and bring it to the hip. Push down into the inner thigh and slide the right leg underneath the chair. It can stay on the ground or you can lift it. Make sure you're breathing and push down into the bottom elbow so you've got a lot of support in that shoulder. If you ever get tired, just kickstand the leg, even lower the hips all the way, and then you've got the option to come back up. If it's comfortable, you're welcome to stay up and just make sure you can breathe wherever you are. Nice job. I love seeing so many different variations. Come out of it when you need to come out of it. There is no prize for staying in it longer unless your body is craving that. Last breath if you're still in it. And then let's all lower the bottom leg. Slowly drop the top arm. Let the top foot face the ceiling. Find your table. And then open the left leg off to the side. Extend it long. And we'll do Parigasana on the other side, just starting by melting the hips back for a moment, letting that muscle stretch. I know your inner thigh was probably working pretty hard. And then push down into the right shin, slowly rolling forward and then all the way up. And try to use the muscles you were just using, gently tractioning the left foot in towards the thigh. And notice how that can help you lift and lengthen. The arms will float up for a moment. And then left hand to thigh and slowly side bend over the leg without losing that sense of gently hugging in and up. Breathe through the right side of the body. This actually increases your lung capacity. Try to keep that shoulder soft. And then push down into the left foot. Slowly rise up. Arms float to T. I'll meet you guys where you are. Place the hands down. Bring the left leg in. Paw the hands forward, one handprint. Tuck the toes. And then hover the knees and extend the hips up and back. Keep the knees deeply bent for a moment. Let the inner thighs traction towards one another and see if you can use that strength to lengthen the hips up a little bit more as the spine lengthens. And then sway the hips from side to side. As the hips sway to the left, let the right hand drag in a little bit. As the hips sway to the right, let the other hand drag in and slowly make your way to a forward fold with the knees really, really, really deeply bent so the body is soft and there's no strain. Inch your way back towards your chair if you're not already there. If you are, you can let the hips lower to the chair. Let the pelvis become really heavy. Walk the hands up the feet, maybe to the shins, and notice how much work it takes to push the sits bones down. It takes a lot of core effort. Slowly use that effort to roll up to seated. We don't usually do meditation in a chair, but it's time for meditation. You're sitting in a chair. So if you would like to stay in your chair, you're more than welcome to. If you would like to grab a cushion to transition to the floor, I hope it's far away and across the room because going for a little walk right now is going to feel really good. So feel free to also just go for a little walk. Notice any sense of buoyancy, lightness, springiness. And hopefully this physical and energetic lightness sets you up to have a great class with Satyam. Thank you so much for your practice. I'll pass off the baton.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, we are back. All right, so you've all heard of the word karma, okay? We're not going to go too deeply into it, but I want to explore that for our practice today. So karma is like an arrow, well, go this way, shot from a bow. That's a picture of Ram over here. It's a Ram holiday today, actually, one of the deities of the Hindu pantheon. So karma is like an arrow shot from a bow. And those are sometimes arrows you've chosen and you totally remember doing. Oh yeah, I made that big decision. I made that purchase. You know, we shot those arrows up. Other times we're shooting these arrows up unconsciously, not even realizing it, as we just sort of scroll through our day, being guided by our wants and things we don't want and likes and things we don't like. And those arrows are also being tossed into the atmosphere. As these arrows land, that is your reality. If you look around the room you're in, every little object in that room was an arrow that slowly landed. Every little thing. Either you literally brought it there and landed it there, or someone else did at some point, right? Everything that surrounds you, both inside and out, is considered by the yogic tradition to be your karma. And our job as yogis is to learn how to work out our karma. Okay, so this is a quote from Babaji from Shambhavananda, the founder of this tradition. He says, if you find yourself in a particular arena of life, in this or that situation, that is where your karma has taken you, and you have to work it out. If you just run away from it all the time and don't deal with it, then you have to come back again. So you might as well confront your issues now, then you can avoid wasting about 20 years to get focused enough to begin to meditate again. So some words that pop off the screen there are this idea of working it out or confronting your karma. Right away, that can seem a little stressful, because we're so used to things like working out being a no pain, no gain situation, or confrontations being a dramatic situation. Those approaches always tend to make more karma. So instead, think of karma. Here's a little fun analogy that will probably come up for you in a matter of minutes after this class. Think of karma like a sink full of dishes. Okay? So to live, you got to eat. To eat, you got to dirty a dish. So if you want to live well, you're going to have to do some dishes, right? In the beginning, there might be a big pile. Okay? You might have had a stressful day. Maybe full of distractions. And there were a lot of dishes in this day piling up. And we're tired. And we don't want to do the dishes. And so you look at it and you have like a reaction. I don't have time to meditate today. But once you do one dish and you get those hands in that warm water, and you start to clean and you're sort of satisfied with that dish, and you grab another one, you start to realize doing the dishes is actually pretty pleasant. And that's the same way it is with meditation. At first, it might feel a little challenging to assume the meditative posture, to start to focus on your breath. But really, it's a pretty pleasant situation. It's a pretty pleasant way to change your life, all in all. And so we see this in the sutras. It tells us that we actually must learn to enjoy our karma in order to overcome it. So this is from Sutra 3.25. Prarabdha karma cannot be overcome unless it is enjoyed. For an embodied being, prarabdha karma is unavoidable. He may be just like Shiva, or he may be an ordinary person. Prarabdha karma must be overcome by being enjoyed. It cannot be cast aside or abandoned. So you can't just throw the dishes out. You literally have to clean them. And if you really want to enjoy that process, well, if you really want to grow from it, then you got to learn how to enjoy it. So let's meditate right now with the intention of enjoying our karma. You're right in the middle of your karma. I'm right in the middle of my karma in this very moment. So take a moment to establish a seat that simply puts you in a position of enjoyment. Maybe sitting cross-legged is painful, and so you need to adjust that seat. Set the stage for enjoyment. This is a posture you should feel like you can wash a few dishes in without having a hurt back. Fingertips, the first finger and thumb come together. Jaw relaxes. Forehead softens. And we're all confronted by a full sink of dishes. No one is exempt from that. But here's the difference. Try a slight smile, not for me, it's not even visible to the outside world. Try the slightest smile. And then breathe in through the nose and try to let that breath find the center of the chest, the heart. And see if you can sustain this presence. You're not pushing away the dishes, and you're not trying to get them all done as fast as possible to get to the next thing. You're literally just trying to be present in the best way that you can right now. Make the breath even and smooth with very minimal effort. Imagine the breath as the running water of the dishes. Keep it flowing smoothly. We don't need a fire hose here, but we also need a flow. So find a steady flow. And this is the kind of sink you can just let run. Allow the breath flow, or this water, to warm up a little bit. We're not in any hurry. It can take time to find a steady breath flow with minimal effort. This is all part of the routine. Keep that breath steady and smooth with minimal effort again. And you can bring the mantra Om Namah Shivaya silently to your breath flow. Om Namah Shivaya. Consider this mantra your sponge. Every time you silently repeat Om Namah Shivaya as you inhale, it scrubs the dish. As you repeat Om Namah Shivaya as you exhale, another scrub. The dish is your heart. The dish is your being. The thing that's gotten covered up all day, all week by our karma. The dish is valuable. All you have to do is keep the water flowing and keep the mantra scrubbing. just because we're doing the dishes, meditating, doesn't mean thoughts don't arise. Each thought is like another dirty dish, and you treat each thought the same way you treat each dish. You just keep the water flowing and keep the mantra scrubbing. Physical things can arise just like thoughts, and you treat them the same way. If there's an ache or an itch, breathe into it, use your mantra. That's how you really get rid of it, because as we all know, one itch always leads to another. Let yourself enjoy this moment. You're doing the work that will free you. And you're doing it in your own way, inside. Just keep applying this practice. Every breath. And let the practice do the work. Your energy's gonna go somewhere. Pour it into this for a few more minutes and feel the difference. And take this last moment and just notice your state of being. It's not as abstract as it sounds. Just notice how your shoulders feel. Notice how your digestion might feel. Notice how your forehead feels, how your breath moves. We can wash these dishes all day in a very comfortable way. It's sort of like staying ahead of the dishes when you're cooking a lot. Just taking a minute to just breathe and do a little mantra does the dishes of the last hour sometimes. And so of course we'll have opportunities to do some real dishes, and you can apply all these same concepts. But even when you're away from the sink, now see if this approach can support you in lightening the load of your karma and maybe even enjoying it. So, namaste everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
So wonderful to start the weekend with you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing your families. And I just want everyone to see what's happening in Amber's yoga room, because something really cute is happening. So if you go to gallery mode, you'll see that Amber brought her whole family, and that means there's a tiny yoga mat and a tiny chair. And it's,
oh my gosh,
it's the best thing ever. So thanks for helping to open our heart extra wide, Amber's family and everybody. Have a great weekend.
See you next time.
Enjoy your karma. Aloha.